Now, there are probably a million answers to this question. Your camera, your lighting, your director of photography, your sense of style, story, your characters, your writing, all of these things that could definitely be credited with why a movie is good and or why we like them.
I remember when I was like 13, 14, 15, I really disliked going to the beach. It was mainly because I didn't want to walk around with my shirt off. Most of the people my age were like half a foot taller than me. I didn't really have a frame that had any muscle on it. And I remember what I would do is, for most of the time, I would stare at the other dudes that were there that were in much better shape than I was and just kind of compare myself to them, as I assume most people do still. And I'd always be like, man, I really want to look like that one day. I just wish I could look like that. Usually after the beach, I would go home, take my shirt off, sunburn and all, and just kind of stare myself in the little bathroom mirror that I had. And I would say, yeah, I could look like one of those guys, be in pretty good shape. I just got to put on about 25 pounds of muscle, grow about a foot, and, have a body that could not generally be described as a bowl of beaten mashed potatoes. So then I finally turned 16. I was so excited. I signed up for my gym membership, and I just started going. Now, this was in 2009, so this was way before the boom of Instagram fitness gurus and YouTube celebrity personal trainers. So it wasn't like I could just search some sort of exercise and it would just pop up with unlimited options. I basically had bodybuilding.com, random apps that you could get on your iPod Touch, or God forbid you had to read a book. So I ended up doing the first two because I don't want to read. So I started doing different splits, like a pushing split, a pulling split, a leg split, things that are very common and popular nowadays. So then I kept breaking it down even more. In each workout, I had 5 to 6 exercises. Each exercise had anywhere between 3 to 5 sets, depending on what the goal was. And each set of an exercise had anywhere between 3 to 15 repetitions. So then it was this whole theme of breaking down that macro goal of looking good on the beach into the mechanics of how to properly do a bicep curl. And I did that consistently 4 to 6 days a week for about, I think it was 4 months. And in 4 months, I went from looking like this to looking like that. Now, I'm probably still pretty pinner in the after photo, but at 16, and for me, that was a significant transformation. People in my class started noticing, I started getting compliments. But the thing that really stood out was just the sheer number of adults that were astounded by how I did it and would ask me how I was even able to accomplish it. And I'm looking at them like, I'm 16 years old. I barely know how to drive a car. What are you asking me for advice? And being 16 at that time, I wasn't the most articulate, so I was like, I don't know, I just put the weights up and down a few times. I do it a couple times a week, and I eat chicken breast. What do you want me to say? And to be quite honest, I didn't really think much of it until I saw this guy.
How many of you believe you could replicate this image of Brad Pitt with just a pencil and piece of paper? Well, I'm going to show you how to do this. And in so doing, I'm going to give you the skill necessary to become a world-class artist. And it shouldn't take more than about 15 seconds. But before I do that, how many of you believe you could replicate this image of a solid gray square? Every one of us. And if you can make one gray square, you can make 2, 3, 9. Truth of the matter is, if you could make just one gray square, it'd be very difficult to argue that you couldn't make every gray square necessary to replicate the image in its entirety. And there you have it. I've just given you the skill necessary to become a world-class artist.
Okay, wait. I know. It sounds really exaggerated. It sounds like he's just trying to sell you something. I get it, but just hear me out. We're gonna dig deep. It'll make sense, I promise, by the end of the video, okay? You just gotta trust me. Do you trust me? Hit the like button if you trust me. So who is this guy? What's he all about? Well, as far as I know, his name is Steven Dunier. He's a businessman. He's not trying to sell us anything in this video. And I think most of the advice that he's giving is pretty legit. What he's trying to say is that when it comes to even our most ambitious goals, the reason we tend to not reach it has less to do with our raw talent and more to do with the barriers we put in front of ourselves and the lack of problem-solving skills that we've developed. See, his whole thesis is that if you're able to take a big, ambitious goal and break it down into the smallest possible components of that goal and make marginal, tiny improvements along the way, you'll eventually get there. And he proves this to us by analyzing the career of Novak Djokovic.
Back in 2004, when he first became a professional tennis player, he was ranked 680th in the world. It wasn't until the end of his third year that he jumped up to be ranked third in the world. He went from making $250,000 a year to $5 million a year in prize money alone, and of course he did this by winning more matches. In 2011, he became the #1 ranked men's tennis player in the world, started earning an average of $14 million a year in prize money alone, and winning a dominating 90% of his matches. Now here's what's really interesting about all of these very impressive statistics. Novak doesn't control any of them. What he does control are all the tiny little decisions that he needs to make correctly along the way in order to move the probability in favor of him achieving these types of results. And we can quantify and track his progress in this area by taking a look at the percentage of points that he wins. Because in tennis, the typical point involves 1 to maybe 3 decisions. I like to refer to this as his decision success rate. So back when he was winning about 49% of the matches he was playing, he was winning about 49% of the points he played. Then to jump up, become #3 in the world, and actually earn $5 million a year for swinging a racket, he had to improve his decision success rate to just 52%. Then to become not just #1, but maybe one of the greatest players to ever play the game, he had to improve his decision success rate to just 55%. Now I keep using this word just. I don't want to imply this is easy to do. Clearly it's not. But the type of marginal improvements that I'm talking about are easily achievable by every single one of us in this room.
He mentions his journey of going from a student who couldn't focus to being a very successful businessman. He even applied it to things such as learning how to drive a race car, flying an airplane aerobatically, and even winning a world record. I've linked the full video in my description. I think everyone should watch it. It is incredibly inspiring. What's funny is, even though I applied this as a teenager without really even knowing about it, I've seemed to have forgotten it as an adult. You see, this fundamental foundation of learning a skill is how we learned to read and write. We started with the alphabet, then we continued with words and eventually sentences and paragraphs. It's how we learned to ride a bike. It's how we learned how to swim, and pretty much every other skill. But for some reason, when we become adults, we forget that when you start something new, it's important to keep going at it step by step. You can't just achieve a big goal when you've never had any experience with it. I'll use myself as an example. I've been wanting to make YouTube videos for months now, but even though I come from an acting background, I have this anxiety towards putting my phone in front of my face and recording myself. Even though there's no one here, it's just me. There's no one listening to this. There's no one who will ever hear it if I choose not to record it, or not to release it rather, anywhere. And I've been struggling with this YouTube video that I've wanted to make on my computer for like 3 weeks now. I've had the idea for months. I've wanted to do it. I look at my computer, I get anxious, I get nervous, I think that anything I say on the camera sounds stupid, I think my hair looks wacky, I think the sweater I'm wearing is crap. And the reality is that nobody cares. Nobody will even ever know about all the things I'm putting in my own head, all these mental barriers. All they will see is the end product. So it doesn't matter if your goal seems silly to you. Most people are too busy to even care about what you want to accomplish. I want to make really good YouTube videos that people want to watch. It's not a career aspiration, it's just a hobby. So why am I making it so difficult? I should just grab a phone, start recording, and put it online, not caring about what others think. I should just do my best work. But you know what? The reality is that we're scared to be criticized. We feel vulnerable, and it's a lot easier and a lot safer to just not do. Why don't we turn that around? If you're watching this video, if you've made it this far, you probably empathize with my situation a bit. Or, I don't know, maybe you just like my face. Probably the first part. Turn it around. If you want to do something, just go and do it. What kind of results would you get if you just stopped thinking and started doing? I'm going to wrap this video up with just saying, whatever it is that you want to do right now, whatever goal that you maybe had a few years ago that you tucked away, or whatever dream or passion or opportunity you left behind, what will it take for you to take the first step? How exposed will you feel taking the first step? If it's reading 50 books, can you read the first word in the first book on your list? If it's learning how to swim, can you just find the courage to show up to the pool and float around a bit? Let's face it, we're not going to be here forever. That's the only thing that's certain. So take action. Take charge. Take the first step. What will you achieve?